All right, so hopefully you just finished your quiz, and for your homework, you're going to take notes on this video that I'm making here, and then you're going to do a few problems. We're not going to do all of the notes that are listed or all the examples that are listed, and you're not going to do all of the problems that are on the back. So, just at the end of the video, I'll tell you which ones you're responsible for. So before we start with the examples on the next page, I'm just going to go through a few little bits of background information or things for you to remember. So you guys all know that when you have, like, let's say you have the square root of, like, 49. The reason this turns into 7 is because you have a square root, and 49 is really 7 squared, so we've talked about how pretty much the square root and the square knock each other out. Well, the reason that's true is because you've now learned, you got 7 squared, you've now learned that the square root is a 1/2 power, right? Like if somebody writes x to the 1/2, that means a square root of x. So that square root of x means I have a 1/2 power. So the reason that they're canceling each other out is because the rule here is we multiply these exponents. So half of 2 is 1, so that's why I get 7 to the 1, and so that's why all along this answer was 7. All right. You've also known in the past when we have solved equations, like, say you had like x squared equals 25, and you're like, okay, well, I know what to do. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. And so the idea here is that a square and a square root, they kind of knock each other out. Now, if we were doing this problem here, we would have gotten x equals plus or minus 5 to finish it off. But the idea was that the 2 and the 1/2 power knock each other out, and then I just do the square root of 25 and get 5. All right? So that's the background pieces of information that if you have a square, it's canceled out by a square root in a way. And same with a cube. If you had x to the third equals, let's say, 27, I would have told you, hey, if you have a cube, to get rid of a cube, I should do a cube root. And so I do a cube root over here as well, because cube root is a 1/3 power. And so those knock each other out, and you get x, and then the cube root of 27 is 3, and so on. All right, so that's like the opposite action in a way. All right, so let's get to some of our examples here. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger by going to this other screen. All right, so that's a little bit easier to see. So you can see in letter A here, I have a square root in my problem to solve. So your first job is to clean this up. Just like when we did absolute value problems, remember when we would have like 3, absolute value x plus 1, minus 2 equals, let's say 10. You would have to add 2 first, then you'd have to get rid of this 3 right here by dividing, and then you could proceed and do your problem. So it's the same thing here. This 2 out front here, I need to get rid of it. It's multiplied by the radical, so I'm going to divide. So divide both sides by 2. And so now my problem's clean. I have a square root of x plus 5 equals 4. So now, like I said earlier, when you have a square root, the way to cancel it out, the square and a square root knock each other away. So what we're going to do to get rid of a square root is going to be kind of the opposite thing. I'm going to do a square power. Well, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Right, and so sometimes you can do these things in your mind a little bit. You don't have to write every step down, but just for the beginning, you should do that. So the square and the square root knock each other away, and out pops x plus 5. And 4 squared is 16. And it's as simple as that. So all I have to do is subtract 5 to finish this off. And so I get x equals 11. Right, and you should just go back and check it if you want to. Put 11 back in here. So 2 square root 11 plus 5, that has to equal 8. So 2 square root of 16, so that's 2 times 4, which does equal 8. So we're good. All right, with letter B. Now letter B, I have more cleaning to do. All right, I got this 15 and this 3. So it's kind of like I have 3 times something plus 15 equals 21. So I want to get rid of the 15, then I want to get rid of the 3. So remember, you have to do addition, subtraction first, then get rid of your multiplication, division. So take away 15. So that gets you 6 on the right side. So I still have 3, and this time I have a cube root of 4x plus 1. All right, so I have to divide the 3 because it's multiplied by 3, so divide here by 3. All right, so I still have my cube root of 4x plus 1, but now it equals 2. Whoopsie. All right, so a cube root, you will have to cube both sides. So remember, a cube root is a 1/3 power, so I will have to do a 1/3 power to get rid of it. Well, whatever I do to one side, I do to the other side. All right, so the 4x plus 1 pops out because these basically knock each other out, and 2 to the third is 8, and you just have a little algebra 1 problem to solve. So I take away 1 from both sides. That will get me 4x equals 7. I will divide by 4, so my fraction is 7/4 for my answer. Okay, and if you want to check it, I would put good old 7/4 in there. So 3 cube root 4 times 7/4 plus 1, and then I have a plus 15. Well, look at this. The 4's cancel out. 7 plus 1 is 8 inside there. So I have 3 cube root of 8 plus 15. So that's 3 times 2 plus 15. And that is 6 plus 15. So guess what? That's 21, just like it said it should be. All right, so that's the last time we're going to check. You don't really, none of these answers are going to be fake, really. So we're just going to leave them as they are. All right. So with letter C, I have a square root, so I have to get rid of the 6 first. Outside, clean it up. So take away 6. So that's gone. So I have a square root of 3 minus 4x equals 13 minus 6 is 7. So I'm ready right now to square both sides. Okay, so on the left side, 3 minus 4x pops out, equals 49. All right, and so I'm going to solve this by taking away 3 on both sides. All right, I get negative 4x equals, let's see, that would be 45. So the fraction for my answer will be 45 over negative 3. Okay, all right. So that's the end there. Let's go over here. All right, so letter D, notice it has a 4th root. So I'm just trying to expose you to all the different types of radicals that you could see. So you can see that minus 2, the subtraction of 2 is hanging out to the right. So I'm going to have to add 2 to clean that off. All right, so I still have a 4th root, and don't worry, 2/3 x, that fraction is fine, plus 1 equals 3. So now it's time to get rid of the radical. I can't get inside the radical until, I can't touch anything in there until the radical is gone. So to get rid of the 4th root, I go ahead and do a 4th power. All right, and 3 to the 4th, 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, 27 times 3 is 81. All right, so out pops the 2/3 x plus 1. So from here, I just do my algebra. I just do take away 1. All right, so I get 2/3 x equals 80. And you could do this in 2 steps. You could multiply by 3 first, and then we'll divide by 2 later, or you could just multiply by the reciprocal, 3/2. So I'll just do it in these pieces since I wrote it down. So 2x equals 80 times 3 is, 8 times 3 is 24, and add a 0 for the 80, and then divide by 2. So you divide 240 by 2, 24 divided by 2 is 12, and you have a 0 on the end, so it's 120. Okay, all right, and so the only other one we're going to do in this row is letter E, and then letter F we're going to save for next time in class. So on letter E, so letter E is kind of different. You notice I have basically a cube root on both sides. And this 2 sitting right here, I can't, if I divide by 2, it's just going to be like under here, and that's worse looking to me. So right now, I have to get rid of the cube root on both sides. So what I'm going to have to do is cube both sides immediately. There's nothing I can do other than that. So I'm going to cube this, and then I have to remember that to include the 2, I mean, it's part of the right side, so cube that. All right, so the left side is nice and clean. When the cube is going to cancel out the cube root, so x minus 5 pops out. On the right side, the 7 minus x is going to pop out as well, but don't forget you have that 2 in front. So this 2 needs to get the 3rd power also. So 2 to the 3rd is 8, and then out pops, so times 7 minus x. Well, I want to be sure that 8 is multiplied by the 7 minus x. So I'm going to put parentheses around that to make sure I do distributive property. All right, so 8 times 7, then 8 times negative x. So I get 56 minus 8x, and I got x minus 5. Okay, I'm going to add 8x, just regular solving. So I get 9x minus 5 equals 56. Add 5 to both sides, so I get 9x equals 61. And my fraction for my answer is 61 over 9. Okay. All right, and so the other 2 examples we're going to do here, we're going to do G and H down here, and that'll be it. Oops, I guess they're on the next page for me. So there's G and H. All right, now I need you to remember a couple things here. So when you have a cube root can have a negative number inside. Like if you do cube root of negative 8, you get negative 2. So cube roots are allowed to have negative answers because you see that there. But remember, when you have a square roots, if you have a negative inside, or even a fourth root, if you have a negative inside of a square root, like let's say -4, remember you get 2i. So the imaginary part, when you're taking the square root of both sides, that can come out. But when we're solving these right here, I'm trying to think of numbers that make it true. So let me go on to letter G and show you what I mean. So to clean this up, I'm going to take away 10. That goes away. So I get square root of x minus 7 equaling -6. So what I have here is like a weird situation. I need to know the square root of what number makes -6. So my mind automatically goes to 36. Well, okay, square root of 36. Well, square root of 36 is 6. If I put a negative inside that, it makes 6i. There's no way to get a negative answer like this from a square root. So if there's no answer, then you know what? I just say no solution. So if you ever clean up a square root or a fourth root or a sixth root, anything with an index that is even, if you ever clean it up and you get a negative on one side, you're done. There is no solution to that. All right, so let's do letter H. So my cleaning on letter H, I got to add 2 to both sides. So I still have 4 cube root x plus 6 equals -8. All right, so I'm going to divide by 4. All right, so I have the cube root of x plus 6 equals -2. All right, so from here, it's okay to have a negative answer because you saw up here that cube roots are allowed to have negative solutions because, you know, like -2 times -2 times -2 is -8. So when you have -2 cubed, that's -8. So cubes, the negative stays with you. All right, so this is perfectly acceptable to have a negative on the right side. So anytime this is an odd number, you can keep going. So I'm just ready to do the third power on both sides. All right, so -2 to the third on the right is -8, and out pops x plus 6. So all I have to do now is subtract 6 from both sides. So I get -14. Okay, all right, so that is the end of the notes. We will finish the others in class. You have to do for homework, you have to do these problems here, but not all of them. So let me tell you which ones you got to do. You have to do 1 through 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so you got to do 1 through 4, so circle those. And then you also have to do 7 and 8. So when I move this, the circles are going to move. So you also have to do 7 and 8. Okay, and watch out, you know, one of them might be no solution. So you have to do those 6 problems and have your notes, and that will be your homework being complete. I'll see you in class. Bye-bye.